Do you mind if I keep?
Yeah, go ahead. No problem.
So to give you a bit of context, I'm writing an article that addresses the question of what would have happened had you been tasked with either approving or denying reimbursement for Medicaid-funded abortions. So my first question is, given your moral beliefs about abortion, would it be difficult to make the decision to approve reimbursement for Medicaid-funded abortions?
Well, first of all, that's a hypothetical question, and frankly, I would just say, I'm pro-life, and I believe that all human life is valuable and should be protected. I do respect the fact that we have to abide by the laws, and we have court decisions that impact, what legally we can do. I also respect the fact it's very controversial and different people have different opinions. So I don't want to speculate on something before I would have to deal with it. I will tell you, when I was governor before, we had issues that came up involving life and death that, let's say, included such things as organ transplants. Back in the 80s, I remember a child from Iowa who desperately needed a liver transplant. It wasn't considered, at that point it was considered experimental. So it wasn't covered by Medicaid unless an exception was made. And at that time, the only place that was doing it was Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh. I carefully reviewed the circumstances of that, and I did make the decision to authorize the Medicaid expenditure for that particular liver transplant, which actually saved that child's life. But I just don't think it would be appropriate for me to speculate on what I would or wouldn't do. I think it depends upon the unique and individual circumstances of each case.
Right, no, I completely understand that. I'm just wanting to know if it would be difficult.
Oh, absolutely would be difficult.
Okay, and why?
Why? Because we're talking about a life and death issue.
Right.
It's just like the issues that I had to deal with on organ transplants. So I think you want to be very, very thoughtful and very careful and get all the information. The same is true with the difficult decisions the governor has to make on executive clemency. The governor, only the governor, has the authority to provide for individuals that are serving a life sentence to be commuted, making them eligible for parole. And so that, when I get those kind of decisions, I have on a few occasions, most recently with Raspberry Williams, granted executive clemency and made it possible for somebody who was serving a life sentence to become eligible for parole. But you have to take into consideration public safety and as well as the individual circumstances.
Okay. So what factors would you have considered most significant in terms of determining whether to approve it?
I don't know that you can really speculate. I think you have to look at the individual case before you. I have not been presented with one as of now, and so I'm not going to speculate because I don't know the individual circumstances. And I think, in a sense, it's kind of like a judge as an individual case. You need to know all the details before you make a decision. And so I wouldn't want to prejudge and make a decision before I had all the facts.
Okay. Can you briefly walk me through what a thoughtful process would look like?
Well, a thoughtful process would be to try to get all the facts and all the information. Just like I think a judge would do, just like I do on executive clemency, which means that you would need to spend a great deal of time. You would need to try to get all the different information from the doctors and from the hospital or whoever was involved in it.
Okay. Are you relieved you haven't had to make these difficult decisions, and why?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess my feeling is this is a tough job. And I take my responsibility very seriously. The governor can sign or veto bills or let them go into law without making a decision. I have never taken that route. I have always made a decision to sign or veto. I've made a lot of tough decisions in this job. I've had to veto a lot of spending in order to make sure that the state budget is balanced and in good shape. Because all you have to do is look to the east across the river in Illinois and you see a state where they don't have leaders that have done that. And you see a state in dire financial straits. They have the worst unfunded pension system. They have the most state and local debt per capita. And they're $6 billion behind in paying their bills. I inherited a financial mess. I made the tough decisions. I put together a 2-year budget. 5-year projections. Today, Iowa is considered one of the best managed states in the country by the different groups that, I think we're in the top 5 in the whole country. We have one of the lowest amounts of public debt, and we've restored the money taken by the previous administration from the cash reserve and economic emergency account. Those are tough decisions, and they weren't always popular. Just at the end of this last session, I vetoed $135 million worth of spending. But you may have noticed we ended the fiscal year $185 million less than the estimate. So the legislature had already gone home, and I saw what was coming. And I said, in order to meet our ongoing obligation for the next 5 years, we need to be very careful and not embark on and spend that ending balance on something that wasn't even seen by the legislature to after midnight of the last night. And there were things in there that I'd recommended that I supported. But that's where this job is a difficult job, and you have to, but I also try to reserve judgment till I see things in their final form, because the danger of threatening a veto, it could change dramatically during the session. And the end result, because the bill has to pass both houses in the same form, could be much different than it started out as. So that's the reason why I try to be very careful not to make a final decision until I have the legislation. And most bills, a lot of the major pieces of legislation pass in the last 3 days of the session. Normally I only have 3 days to sign or veto bills once they've been enrolled and presented in this office. But I have 30 days at the end of the session, which I think is very good, because that gives the opportunity to very carefully review and analyze it. That's what we did with the budget bills this time. And they're also sometimes pretty complicated, because what they did, the legislature, for instance, played what I would say some little games here. They took the funding for some regions' capitals and they moved them from the appropriation that had been made in the previous year and put it into a different fiscal year. And then they figured, well, I couldn't dare veto that bill because those are ongoing projects. So I had to veto more spending in the RIF bill, in the Revitalize Iowa's Infrastructure bill, in the infrastructure bill, in order that I could veto the de-appropriation in that bill, and thereby have those bills, that funding for the region's capitals, be funded because I vetoed that provision in the other bill. So that, the fact that we carefully reviewed and analyzed that and tried to make the tough fiscal decisions, but do it in the least disruptive way possible, I think shows that we take a very thoughtful and analytical approach towards what makes the most sense. And the bottom line is still, the budget needs to be balanced, and we don't want to use the fiscal tricks of the previous administration, using one-time money for ongoing expenses and putting the state in jeopardy of another across-the-board cut.
What I want to make sure that we understood correctly, at the beginning of Jacob's question about are you relieved, he said yeah, and sometimes that's a reflective yeah, I get your question, or sometimes that's yeah, I'm relieved. So I just want to make sure that we understand that when he listens to the tape.
Okay. I make all the tough decisions that are presented to me. So, but do I like to have to make a lot of tough decisions? No, but that's part of the job. So I don't want you to misunderstand this. In other words, I deal with whatever, and I would say, I just want to know all the facts, and I don't like surprises. And I think I can deal with about anything that comes my way.
Okay. Yeah, but I think this is slightly different though than just an ordinary difficult decision. It's a decision that you have a moral investment in. So would you say that the relief from not having to deal with that is greater than the relief from not having to deal with other decisions that are just kind of coming with the job?
No, I guess my feeling is I have to deal with whatever situation comes my way. And I can't predict it. And, you know, whether it's a flood or whether it's one of our soldiers getting killed in Afghanistan, or I need to call the family and go to the funeral because I feel I'm the governor and I need to reassure them and let them know that we care, or whether it's dealing with the budget issues, or whether it's dealing with the life and death issue like organ transplants or abortion. I mean, those are all part of the job. Or, you know, it's not life and death, but it's close to it when you're looking at executive clemency. This is a tough job. I knew that when I ran for it, and I especially knew that when I came back and ran again. But I love this state, and I really believe I have the experience and the knowledge to do this job and to do it right and do it well. And I've learned patience and perseverance. That comes from experience. I think I'm a lot more patient and a lot more experienced person than when I started in 1983. Is that,
Any other questions?
any other questions? Okay?
Governor, as always, thank you for doing this.
You're
with us.
welcome.
We appreciate it.
Yeah.